Here is the analog board, the voltage gain board from the Krell HTS7.1. As mentioned earlier, the capacitors fail very sooner than they should be. And two main reasons. One is the capacitor, surface mount capacitor, the lifetime normally is shorter than the normal radial kind of capacitor. And secondly, this is pure Class A board. So you can see lots of transistors, and they heat up the board quite high temperature. And that's the reason these capacitors definitely need replacement if you own one of this preamp or you plan to own one. You can see there are two of these boards. Each contains 4 channels. Full discrete Class A. This is very rare because most of the multi-channel process preamp, they are operational amplifiers, and the discrete is very rare because it consumes more power and considered more expensive, but the performance is much better than op amps. So I think it definitely worth the time and effort to restore these preamps. And you can see there are big ones, 68 microfarad ones, and the smaller ones are 10 microfarad. The big ones are for power decoupling, the voltage rails, and the small ones are for the DC servo. Make sure the offset, 0 offset. And these capacitors are even more important because if they failed, the amplifier won't work properly because the DC will change as you have signal passing through the amplifier. And it's a little bit difficult, and this video is to show you how we should do the job, recap the board. And you can see what I have is a big magnifier, so you can, because the components are quite small, and especially solder joint is relatively small. So this would help you to see much clearer while you're doing desolder and solder. And the other thing is how we remove the old one and how we solder the new one on. There are multiple ways to remove the old capacitors, but I think the easiest way is just directly to twist it off. Let me remove this a little bit, make it slightly easier to work with. So the sequence probably want to remove the large one first and then remove the small one. And when you solder the new capacitor back in, I think you want to start with the smaller one and then mount the bigger ones. So it's kind of an opposite, but you can do whatever you want. Let me quickly show you the way I do this removal thing. Use a kind of a plier. I think twist it off is the easiest way to do. Because the leads of this surface mount capacitor is relatively thin, so they won't apply too much of a stress onto the solder pad. You can just rotate the capacitors. I would just rotate on one direction because back and forth might apply more stress to the pad. and it's off. You can see the lead such a break. And you're going to leave the remaining on the board. So later on you can desolder them. It's much easier than, say, if you desolder now, because then you need probably 2 solder guns to heat it up together. Otherwise, the overheating when you do one side and the other side tend to damage the pad. See? It won't save your pad pretty well. And similarly, you can do on the smaller one. Just rotation. Don't pull it up, because that might add stress to the pad. One direction. So this one, this is the, oh, it's fall off. But you can see the lead breaks. Let me show you this one. Be careful not to damage the surrounding component. So you see this one, it breaks at the end of the lead. Might be slightly difficult to remove the part, but once you remove these things, I think you can just desolder them off, because they are no longer connected to each other. Otherwise, it's quite difficult. So I would say this is a good way to remove the old one while keep your pad intact. Okay, I will continue to do this and remove all of them. And then I'll show you how to remove these little leads remainings. It's simple. So this is, I think, the easiest way to do. To remove the smaller remainings, you probably want to use a tweezer. Heat it up and pull it off. The other side is easier, because this side is a little more difficult, because the other side is tied. So you remove one side first. This one is easy. This one already done. Let's rotate angle for you to easy to see. Be careful, don't damage the surrounding ones. One side at a time. You can't do this when you have the capacitors on, because the two sides actually stretch each other. But once the capacitor is off, it's much easier to desolder, because it's desolder one side at a time. Just be patient. In general, it's easy to do. Just need to be a little bit careful Don't damage the pad and don't affect the surrounding component. Okay, so everything is removed. And I still have some remaining leads on the large ones. I will just continue to remove them. And then I will show you the how to resolder the new ones. This is the new capacitor. I used 22 microfarad, bought from DigiKey. It's Rubicon, so it's very high quality component. Again, there are two types, right? The smaller one and the big one. So the sequence I would like to go is to mount the smaller one first. Otherwise, the big one might be just make the place a little tighter. So the way to do this, you just put some solder on one pad and then slide the capacitor in to solder one lead and then do the other lead at a later time. So this is the smaller one. Put solder on. There are total 8 of them. So I'll just do one side at a time. Make sure the polarity is correct. This is relatively easy because it's silk screen. You see there's a shape there. The positive side is kind of without the corners. So you align that way. Here we solder the positive side first. You mat the pad and slide this capacitor in. Hold it in place. One by one. Again, double check on the polarity. Match the shape. Melt, slide over. One by one. So you can see you don't want to use too large of iron tip. Medium small is the best. Be patient. So once you're done on one side, you can do the other side. So done with 4 of them. To do the similar on the other 4. Now you can see the 8 smaller ones are in place. And the next thing we're going to do is to mount the bigger ones. Same procedure. So this is the larger one. Right, 2 leads on the side. Again, there's a possible polarity without the corners. Negative is the flat. You can also see this mark, the blue mark is the negative. And the way we mount these things same way. We just solder, put some solder on one pad. Solder one lead first. And then do the other side. This way you can make sure that the capacitor lay flat on the board. First one first. Again, the shape, make sure it matches the shape. This bigger one is kind of large, so make sure you push it all the way aligned with the silk screen marks so that you have sufficient space left for the other end. The bigger one is slightly easier because you can hold it more securely than the smaller one. Again, make sure the polarity. So you can see this magnifier really helps. Put it in place. Make sure you don't have too much solder on the solder gun. Push it all the way. Hold it a little bit. Make sure it's cooled down. Don't put too much solder. By the way, the solder itself contains flux, so you don't have to have extra flux. Don't put too much heat. They very much go to the same direction. Hold it a little bit. Make sure it's cool down. And now you can probably cannot see clearly through the camera, but basically you just do solder on the other end. It should be easier then. Don't put too much solder, but make sure the solder wet the pad. And the trick is to add the solder on the pad instead of add the solder onto the tip of the solder iron. Let me show you this one, maybe a better angle. Iron tip. By the way, you see I put some wood underneath. Find the best angle it works for you. Once the pad is heated up, the soldering goes very smoothly. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 8 large one on. I will continue to populate all 16. I believe I have 16, 20, 22 of them on each board. So now all the capacitors are soldered on. The large ones, the small ones. So after the soldering, you want to say under the magnifier, check each of the solder point, make sure everything clear, doesn't affect the adjacent component, and so on and so forth. I will also show you, I use a multimeter to measure the total capacitance, make sure all the capacitors are in good contact. Now it's all soldered, let's do some measurement. Let's first do a kind of inspection under the microscope. And now let's measure the capacitance. There are total, on each side, it's 16 capacitors. So each of the large capacitors 100 microfarad. So supposedly, if we measure the positive rail or the negative rail, they should about say 1500 or 1600. Let's give it a try. This is the negative rail. .47, so about 1500. And the other rail, .47. So also about right. This should be also 1.47 because the two rails are connected together. Yeah. .47. So this means that everything is connected. And we can also take a look at the connection of the capacitor. Let's turn it into resistance mode. So a connection will beep. So this side. Okay. Okay. In general, it should be fine. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. So everything works fine. This board is completed. And side by side, this is the old one, new one. You see the new one, the capacitor is slightly taller than the old one, but it should be okay. We have sufficient room in the preamp chassis. And the small one, actually the new one is slightly smaller, but it's okay. The small one actually might fit slightly better than the old one. Okay, so I will continue work on the other board. So this one gave you 4 channel, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. It's full balanced, non-inverted, inverted, full balance, 4 channels. So 2 board gave you 8 channels. So this is 7.1 means you have 7 channel plus 1 channel, so totally 8 channels.